Hello and welcome to the second part of our Podcast Plus series on coping strategies for law firms during the COVID-19 pandemic. This is the sister podcast to the first part, and again I'm speaking with Mr. Richard Hull, who is the managing partner at Thomas Horton LLP, which is also a Lexcel practice. Good afternoon, Richard.
Good afternoon, Neil.
Thanks for joining us again.
You're welcome.
My name is Neil Partridge. I'm the Operations Director at PDA Legal, and what I'll do swiftly is move us into an overview of what we're going to cover in today's session. You can see on the right hand side the aspects we covered in part one, and I do urge you to go and have a read of that. And indeed in part one Richard also sets out a little bit about his practice and what they do. But today what we're going to do is focus on the staff side of dealing with a COVID-19 pandemic lockdown situation, and also the clients, how to manage and support clients. If you like, today's Podcast Plus is on the people side of the situation and its management. So without further ado, Richard, I'm going to ask you about supervision of staff. How have you been managing that?
Well, I suppose I have to go back to the start of the lockdown, when we had to make a decision as to how we were going to maintain client service, maintain our business operations. And so we took the view that of our 3 offices, we would close 2 and move some staff to our head office, to have some staff working from home and some staff furloughed. But what we found worked for us was not to furlough everybody, but not to keep everybody employed. We furloughed probably in 3 or 4 stages as the news was coming out, as we were reviewing what we anticipated to be the coming period of time. We furloughed more and more staff. It was a gradual process, which allowed members of staff to appreciate why we were doing what we were doing, allowed us to communicate with them directly. We've got about 70 staff, and probably 40 of them are furloughed now. But that took place over a couple of weeks. And so we were able to engage with them effectively. So that now leaves us with around 15 staff at our head office and 15 staff working from home. And so the supervision of staff is undertaken remotely for those who are working from home. We've engaged with them all, so nobody is forced to come into the office or indeed to work from home. And what we've found is that actually a great many staff who continue to be employed mix the working methods to their preference. We have some staff who come in, for example, just for the afternoon. We have some staff who will come in 1 day a week to just deal with their paperwork and then work from home. What we've found is there are very few members of staff who want to work exclusively in the office or want to work exclusively at home. And so that mixture, that ability of having an office open has proven very effective, and it allows us to supervise them effectively. Of course, we're fortunate we have a large office, and with the reduced numbers, we are able to keep to the social distancing guidelines. We have introduced hand sanitizers and antibacterial washes at a variety of stations. But we're leaving a lot of that activity to the lawyer's own common sense. Everybody's being very cautious. But that is how we are supervising. I would struggle, I think, to see how staff could be supervised effectively if everybody was working from home. It's my opinion and my opinion only, but you do need an open office to see post coming in, to deal with post, to deal with letters, to deal with inquiries. I'll maybe talk a bit later about clients and the impact upon clients of having an office that's open, but certainly we've found that staff have appreciated an office being open. It's always manned by a partner. At the minute, there are 4 of the 5 partners in the office. And so we are able to supervise all of our staff effectively.
Thank you very much. That was actually a question I was going to ask, which was, are all your supervisors still available to your staff? And actually, if you've got your 4 partners still available, then I'm assuming, yes, that if a member of staff had a query, they'll be able to pick up the phone and speak to one of those partners fairly easily?
Yes, absolutely. Reception is still manned. And so, and they also have the partners' mobile numbers. But so the partners are able and heads of departments are able to answer any queries very quickly and efficiently. That hasn't proved a challenge. Where we have undertaken some amendment is file reviews, because of course some of the reviewers have been furloughed, but we've got a good file review process, and so we've simply amended the requirement of reviewers and reviewed to reflect who remains working.
Thank you very much. I mean, it leads us very nicely onto the next subject, because as you say, people are working partly remotely and partly in the office. And I do wonder long term whether there is a hint of that's the way things will go in the years to come. But at this present moment in time, how are you keeping staff involved and motivated?
I think everybody is guided by their own personal experience. I similarly have worked from home one day a week, maybe one day a fortnight historically, and that's absolutely fine. But going home and trying to work from home for a 2-day period at the start of the pandemic, I lasted one day, and it's no short journey for me. But I returned back to the office for day 2 because I couldn't be away from the office. And so what it occurred to me then was that maybe other staff who are working from home are struggling with that as well, but don't have the flexibility to do what I did. So we've sought to keep them motivated by a variety of methods. We've all shared pictures of our home offices so that we can all see where we're working. And we've seen people at kitchen tables, people at dining room tables, people with slippers on, people in their pajamas, people in tracksuits. So it's just trying, I suppose, a lot of the news, hasn't it, been about community. And we've tried to engender a spirit of community within Thomas Horton so that we know we're all in this together. That I imagine it's very tough on those staff who are furloughed. So we have our Facebook page where we can post all of those updates. They can access them. We have regular contact with those furloughed staff to reassure them, to explain to them that we are continuing to review matters, and also to support those who are working from home. So I suppose it's communication, just trying to keep talking to each other, sharing funny stories. I've shared a story with my staff about the fact that I was supposed to be in court, didn't realise that it was going to be a visual link, and so appeared in front of a Crown Court judge in a jumper rather than a shirt and tie on the one day I haven't worn a shirt and tie. So I suppose it's it letting people know of the challenges that we're all facing, then that engenders a spirit of community within Thomas Horton.
Thank you very much. I'm hearing communication, very much so. A bit like the supervision aspect as well.
Yes, and maintenance of standards. I think there is a danger that people think that standards can slip just because we're in a challenging environment. And I don't agree. We're professionals at the end of the day. We should continue to do a professional job. And the fact that that we are in a lockdown doesn't affect that. I was horrified that I was in a jumper, absolutely horrified. So I joked about it with my staff, but in reality, I was horrified, and I won't be making that mistake again. So it's about being professional the whole time.
How are you managing client care? What sort of decisions are you making? How are you keeping up to speed with things? How are you dealing with things like correspondence?
Client care is a challenge for any business in this environment, I think, particularly a law firm. We're at the heart of our community in North Worcestershire. And so I was very aware that there was a danger in remaining open, that it would be perceived as born of commercial desire rather than desire to provide a professional service. Of course, we have perfectly good reason to remain open. We are administering probates, we are drafting wills for NHS workers, we are involved in the court system, whether it be care or crime. So there is a great deal of work that has to genuinely be undertaken and cannot be undertaken from home exclusively. So it was important to engage the community in that. And so we have email footers, and we have on our firm's Facebook page the fact that we are taking this pandemic very seriously. We are practicing social distancing between ourselves and our clients. There are hand sanitizers. We've removed all of our documentation from reception. So we're undertaking all of those necessary measures, which shows our clients that we are live to the risks, that we want them to be live to the risks, but that we recognise that we still need to provide a service. We're fortunate in that we've got a large car park, so we've been signing wills in our car park, almost like a drive-through, where a client will pull up in their car, and the witness will leave our office and go into the car park, sign the will, and then return into the office. So it's just being adaptable, but also showing the clients that we have their concerns and welfare at our heart, both in terms of the professional work we're undertaking for them, but also their health and welfare. So client care is a wide topic. I could talk for hours about client care, because it also touches, of course, upon documentation, upon the fact that we've got solicitors in to review letters, to sign letters,
yes,
to review wills, all of that sort of ordinary client care, as it were, making sure we're doing the right job. But then there's a wider client care question, which is making sure that Thomas Horton is accessible to its clients.
Yes. Have there been any, you mentioned the sort of the drive-by or drive-through will signing, have there been any other, if you like, innovations around contact with clients where you've had to take a new or different approach?
No, I think that was, we've attended addresses and been very careful there as well. We've had the drive-by, the clients driving into the car park to undertake that activity. We've amended our identification procedures so that we are now identifying clients and their documentation via Skype and FaceTime. So there's a number of ways in which we're trying to meet the challenges that present themselves. From all that I hear, I think the SRA are supportive of any solicitor's firm practice that are doing their best, as long as you've recorded what you're doing and why. As long as you've justified your actions and you can explain them to yourself, then I'm comfortable with what we're doing. But it's a constant challenge. It's a daily challenge.
Indeed, thank you very much. Which leads us also on to the next question: client retention. Things like keeping clients informed, service levels, we've touched on those things. But in terms of retaining clients, how have you gone about doing that?
It's surprised me how many clients have come to us because of a lack of communication from another firm. That has really surprised me.
Really?
That they have tried to make contact with their lawyers and they say that they are at home, so can't engage with them in the way they would wish to, or they're furloughed, or our offices are shut, without any additional support to the client. It is not good enough, in my view, to say our offices are shut. So we have client retention, I think, has been achieved by Thomas Horton continuing to provide a service for any client who will contact us. But what I've also discovered is that we are actually gaining clients because they are not able to have their matters progressed with their previous solicitors, which has surprised me.
But that is quite a surprise. Sort of existing or returning clients, I take it from that then they've been reassured that their matter is progressing insofar as it can.
They've been reassured. Staff that have been furloughed, the clients in question have been notified of the change of fee earner and have understood why. And we've explained in a less formal way if clients have telephoned as to why that course of action has been taken. And of course, given the press about the number of people being furloughed, that hasn't come as a surprise to clients. The fact our offices have remained open I did wonder whether that would be a PR challenge, but it hasn't been. It's been 100% positively received by all of our clients. We haven't had any negative feedback from the fact our offices are open. And so that's been really encouraging. And I have no doubt has played a significant part in client retention.
Well, as we move on, again, we've touched on progression of matters, but when it comes to maintaining service levels and things like key dates, insofar as such exist at the moment, how have you managed to stay on top of the progression of the matters that you're conducting?
I think right at the start, I was aware that some firms had furloughed everybody. And it struck me that the firm had a number of outgoings that couldn't be met unless fee income was still coming into the firm. And so every member of staff we reviewed in relation to furlough was reviewed on the basis of can that member of staff bring in fee income above their salary, and can the member of staff remaining service the matters that they currently had, or those matters and the additional matters put upon them by the member of staff that we were choosing to furlough. So what it has proven is that all matters are being progressed, but it is a significant challenge for those who remain in full-time employment or part-time employment as distinct from being furloughed. They are really, really busy, but they have all risen to the task admirably, I have to say. We are flat out, absolutely flat out. And so that's the only area where we do have to monitor the progression of matters to make sure that we're not overstretching the system and that the number of matters they have are capable of being maintained. We're reviewing the furlough of staff every day. In fact, just last week we brought 2 members of staff back, brought them off furlough because the work levels were there that demanded it. So I suppose progression of matters, the key to that is communication. You've got to be engaging with your fee earners on a daily basis, checking their matter list, checking their work in progress, checking their billing, and checking that they're coping. This isn't a time for checking their time recording, for example, and checking they're getting their 6 hours a day. It's actually sitting down with them and saying, are you covering all your matters? I'm giving them suggestions, lists of tasks that they need to complete and the like. As for key dates, matters like that, haven't seen any particular problems arising, but file review processes remain robust and no new trends have come out of file reviews. We'll be doing our file reviews tomorrow. So I'll see whether any new trends come out, but I'm not seeing any issue in terms of dates and the like. It's just the people that are here are very busy. We are probably operating about 1/3 to 50% of our normal turnover. And we're operating that on about 1/3 of our staff, 1/3 to 1/2 of our staff. So the numbers remain relatively balanced.
I suppose then that leads me on to our last question, a question perhaps most firms will be keen to get a perspective on in the coming weeks and months, which is winning new business. How much of that is perhaps taking place at present, or what sort of considerations have you got? What strategies might you be considering, looking maybe 3 months ahead, 4 months ahead, maybe into next year?
I suppose that flows back to the cash flow forecasting. We've forecast a particular level of performance over the next 12 months, and that will be affected by the manner in which lockdown measures are eased. And selfishly, I suppose, I envisage that those firms like ourselves who have maintained staffing levels, who have maintained offices, who've maintained administrative support and the like, will be able to gear up much more quickly. My worry is that for those firms who have effectively mothballed themselves is going to be the speed of transition. I'm not sure I share the government's confidence of a economic bounce back. But what I do think there will be a need for lawyers. And so in those circumstances, we're going to have to be light on our feet. So talking to landlords already about additional space if it's required, I've engaged in some good conversations with that. But making sure that we're not committed to any particular course of action that may not be profitable. But then I am optimistic that new business opportunities will present themselves when, regrettably, as the economy fires back up, I don't think all of the firms will be able to do so. I just don't think they'll have the financial power if they have not continued in business for the last month or so.
I mean, do you see the ways of attracting clients changing? Again, we're really talking about crystal balls here because none of us could really quite predict where this is going to go with coronavirus. But any ideas on the sort of innovations or means of reaching out to the community maybe 6 months from now?
I think that there has been a shift in the community, a shift in the nation's psyche, such that if you are able to show as a business, as an enterprise, as a profession, that you are there to provide support and assistance to your community, that you will be treated favourably. I'm optimistic that people will value their community more as we come out of this lockdown, whether it's the local shop, which we've seen on the news, delivering groceries and food to local residents and supporting their community, to the law firm who does the same. I think we may shrink as a society so that we become more focused in those around us. So our strategy for winning new business is to continue supporting our community and with the optimism that the community supports us, rather than relying on internet law factories, which may have held an attraction historically.
Thank you very much. Really, there's very broad issues. Again, reoccurring themes: communication and a good working culture. But are there any, just before we close out, anything else you'd like to add, Richard?
I suppose that. I was thinking about this. It's professional and commercial resilience and supervision is what's required every day. I have to say, I have to whisper it, I'm quite enjoying it. I'm quite enjoying the challenge professionally and commercially. But it's something that has to occupy every single day. Every single day there are opportunities and challenges. There is a bit of a tap dance to be done. And if you do it, then I think the rewards are there. But don't underestimate the amount of attention it requires. And positivity, I suppose, would be my other comment. Approach that task with positivity. See that there are opportunities out there. Take those opportunities, make the most of everything. And listen to your staff. Some of the ideas, like the Facebook page that we have, came from member of staff. Listen to them and engage them in the process of managing your survival.
Richard, thank you very much indeed for sharing some wise words with us today. It's been enlightening. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Just before we close out, let me tell you a little bit more about some of the other podcasts that we're about to or have already launched recently. There's a range or a menu of those there, and you can actually watch any of these for free at the PDA Legal website. You can also hear from Richard the first part of this particular podcast, where we talk about the regulatory and business continuity aspects, as well as Richard kindly provided us information about working with Lexcel as a legal practice. Thank you very much for joining us again, and we look forward to you joining us again very soon.